because obviously you've got to be selfish when you're a professional athlete. How did you find the balance, or was there a moment where you're like, I need... Welcome back to the Keegan and Company podcast. For those who are new to the show, my name is Keegan Hipgrave. And guys, if you haven't already, could I get you to jump over, give us a little like and subscribe on whatever platform you listen to this podcast on, whether it's Apple, YouTube, Spotify. It's a great way for us to grow the podcast, grow the platform, and just have some incredible guests like I've got on today. In this episode, I'm joined by one of the great men, Australian cricketer, Chris Lynn. How are you, brother?
Good, brother. Thanks for having me.
Mate, I'm pumped we're doing this, man. We're in Brizzy. We're in the Chalky studio, which is beautiful, by the way.
Yeah, it is. It's funny enough because I've got a good relationship with the boys, and they've gone from goal to goal. But yeah, here we are. I'm a little bit nervous, to be honest,
really?
Even though it's just going to be a fun chat. But we'll have some fun. Yeah.
Have you done many podcasts recently?
Not recently, no. Only for the very lucky people.
Well, mate, I feel honoured.
It's something I do take a break from it now and again because otherwise I just find myself just getting down some rabbit holes in every form of life. But yeah, I do enjoy it. I do enjoy talking about some crucial subjects about life, about cricket, about myself. So yeah, it's always refreshing.
But you'd also get peppered as well. Like I imagine there's so many crew who like want you to come on their podcast as well. I think I was telling you just before, like same with Callum Ponga and Paddy Carrigan, two of like my dearest mates. They were the exact same. They're like, man, we get hit up all the time to do podcasts, but they're like, I'd much rather, and like no disrespect, like I'd much rather do something with a good intention behind it, like talking about positive mental health and how to, overcome struggles or challenges or whatever, than selling a t-shirt or doing something else. You know what I mean? So
yeah, that's right.
I'm pumped. I'm pumped we're doing this.
No, it's good. It's going to be a good half hour, 45 minutes, hour if you need.
I was like, what do we got on the clock? Because I mean, we caught up at one of the great men, Ryan Forsey's 32nd birthday. Yeah. It's a beautiful, beautiful evening. And I remember talking to you about it. I was like, man, it's cool that you're like keen to lean into this space. Yeah. Yeah,
absolutely. I think, it gets thrown around quite easily, the mental health status. And but for me, the game of cricket doesn't owe me anything. I owe the game of cricket. So I've got the opportunity now to give back in any sporting aspect or just a mental space to help a kid, whether you might want to move up the batting order, move from the wing to fly half, or just have the confidence to play a team sport, or just the confidence to do anything. You've got confidence, you can do whatever you want. So all I want to do is just see the best in people and see them reach their potential.
It's interesting that you look at it like you don't owe the game of cricket anything, because I talk to a lot of past players, more rugby league players, not so much cricketers, but they're like, it can sort of get in that way where, you've had a bunch of injuries, you walk out of the game and it's like, oh, you sort of leave with like a little bit of feeling of like, oh, I wish I had a little bit more, or wish I got a little bit more out of it. But it seems like you're like, nah, how can we help the younger generation coming through? Is that a top of mind thought? I
suppose it's just a natural thought. I feel that, we're never the victim, sportsmen. I just feel like we're very lucky to be able to play the game. And, as well as anyone, that injuries do happen and that's all part of the process. But as I said, we're not the victim. We're not the ones that are hard done by. We've had a great opportunity to represent whatever club, state or Australia in whatever sport it may be. So I think the outlook is always that positive mindset. And as I said, we're very lucky to play and put some smiles on some people's faces, and that's doing it by hitting a cricket ball or making a tackle, scoring a try, or it might just be signing an autograph after a game. It's as simple as that, rather than heading straight into the shed. So all these little things, I believe, add up. It's like that theory of, if you're flying from Brisbane to Darwin and you're off 1 degree, you're going to end up in Perth, right? So all those little things just keep building up, and here we are in the location of we got the chocolates and here to give back.
Mate, I love that. And I love just the way you look at it, right? And I'm really keen to talk about your career and the ups and downs and the roller coaster of professional sport. But before we do that, I kind of want to touch on what it was like growing up in the Lynn household. Like, were you always an active, sporty kid? Because I had lunch with one of our good friends, Gerald, the other day, and I was like, what was Linny like growing up? He's like, man, so straight. And I was like, he's not that. I was like, was he the lovable larrikin he is today? He's just like, man, super straight. So what was it like growing up?
Well, we got to start with my parents or grandparents even. So where I grew up in Northgate, Dad's parents lived next door as well, so an extra set of hands. Extra car basically to take us 4 kids around. Dad played water polo for Australia,
really?
So he was always quite straight, and driven and disciplined and all those things. And he knew what was good for me if I wanted to become one of the best in what you wanted to do. So he made me swim as a junior. Oh, shit, I hated swimming.
Mate, you and me both, man.
Mate, like
did you do swimming squat?
Yeah.
Far
And
out.
I don't understand why you got to get up at 5 a.m.
Yeah.
You know, I heard sleep's the best form of recovery, right?
Yeah,
so you
yeah,
got to
yeah.
get up nice and early. But swimming is a life skill. And I look back now and you think, I'm glad I did that.
Yeah.
I'm glad I got made to do that. So I'll be pushing that onto Lily, my little one, as she gets older.
But that would have been such a good, that like now you're in professional sport, it'd be such a good recovery tool as well, yeah. Or cross training, I imagine.
Yeah, 100%. And, the sports that I played as a kid, obviously swimming, rugby league, rugby union, AFL, cricket, played water polo at school, all these things. That cross training that you talk about, that's why I believe, through my junior footy career, you're having a stronger base. And that's why I reckon I can hit the ball, probably harder than most cricketers, just because, you might go to the gym every 6 to 8 weeks and max out.
Yeah.
When you're playing footy, you max out 200 times a week in that wrestle.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's why you big boys, you walk past someone, you don't even know your shoulder charge them.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But that strength, I suppose, that, or the bat speed, I reckon, has come from cross training from rugby league days.
That's so interesting because I remember even like the swimming aspect of it. I remember my old boy, similar to you, like driving me to training at 4:30 in the morning. I remember sitting there thinking, what parent would want to make their son drive at 4:30 in the morning to do 6 to 8 kilometers in the pool? I was like, I'm never making my son do this.
Yeah.
But then like I look back now, so grateful, like feel comfortable in the surf. Like I look at the cross training that we did when we were playing footy. Like it was so beneficial now, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, like I just kept trying to come back with excuses. I like, you don't race at 4:30 in the morning. Like, why are you training at 4:30?
Yeah.
But no, very cool. A very healthy upbringing. My mum and dad never earned extraordinary amounts of money, but they worked hard. And I suppose in that generation, it was that old school values of, take your hat off at the dinner table, look someone in the eye when you shake their hands, things like that. Manners are free, but people can easily evade them, and certainly got a smack across the backside, if you didn't do those basic rules.
Is that something that you want to pass down to Lily?
Yeah, 100%. It's a no-brainer. As I said, that old school era, I'd love today's money, but old school era, I love those traits. And just like after a game of cricket, going in the change room, opposition change room, having a beer, things like that, because I feel like they're the times that you learn the most. And as a current player, it's my job now to be a gatekeeper for the young kids to come through and make sure they uphold the same values.
Do you think playing a variety of sports growing up helped the way, like, to get to the professional sport where you are now?
Definitely. And just the cultures that I've run into as well. So in the footy change room, predominantly it's, the Indigenous and Maori players that you play against. It's, you see a different side, whereas in cricket, I'm playing against South Africans, I'm playing, against England, against Indians. So it's a totally different culture. And I reckon that's the cool part about playing sport, and soaking it all into, not being arrogant, and just living your way. Get out and see the cultures in India. It's taught me a lot of patience, for example. Caribbean taught me a lot of patience. They run on island time.
Yeah.
But it's so cool, and I met some great people along the way.
If you weren't playing professional cricket, what do you think? What would be the sport that you'd go down?
Oh, shit, I don't know.
Rugby league? Would you?
Look,
was that a play, rugby league at all?
Potentially, but I say it all the time. I'd rather I'd rather face blokes at bowl 140 than tackle blokes at weigh 120. It's pretty simple. Look, I loved it as a sport growing up, but as well as I did, those Monday and Tuesday contact sessions, absolutely hated. And it wasn't for me. Whereas in cricket, no matter how big and how tall and how fast they could bowl, I could still whack it back over their head. So it was. I wanted to go to cricket training because I enjoyed it. Football training was sometimes getting more of a cringe, like, oh shit, I'm going to get belted again this session.
Really?
Knowing that you're going to get flogged, yeah.
Because I always wondered if there's, especially for people who play a lot of sports growing up, is there a time where because you have to make a decision, right? Like if you were playing water polo, you played AFL, you played a bunch of different sports. Was there a time where you're like, I've actually got to make a decision of what path I want to go down?
Well, I think it was made for me. I had an ACL recon when I was 16 or 17. Once that happened, I knew my time on the football field was up. And again, my love for cricket was just outweighing my love for football. And it just made sense just to put all the eggs in that basket. Saying that, I still get around playing touch footy or odds tag on a Tuesday or Wednesday night and get your fix there, or hang out with the boys on the weekend. And I think that's what the great thing about Brisbane is, because it is small. All the codes get around each other. Everyone's got mutual interests. We might be horse racing, might be playing golf, it might be surfing, whatever it may be. So, yeah, the boys get around each other, and it's pretty cool.
That's one of my favorite things since moving back from Sydney and coming back to the Gold Coast, especially like the crew that we like, the circles that we knock around in Brisbane and Gold Coast is kind of like everyone's out there to help each other. Like, it's not that old school mentality where it's just like someone needs to come down in order for someone else to go up. It's sort of like, how do we help each other? And it's so cool because people have different cafes and businesses and restaurants, or they're playing professional sport, or they're doing the media space. But it's almost like when we catch up, it's like, how do we help each other?
Yeah, for free.
For free. But that's what I mean.
Yeah, because I find, a lot of people out in the reality, in the real world, people, if you disagree with someone, that automatically thinks you hate them.
Yes.
You're allowed to disagree and still, keep moving forward. But yeah, it's cool. And I get a real kick out of helping the young guys. Like, it might be a young Bronco, it might be a young Lions guy or a young cricketer, just offering your services to them, or, just so they don't make the same mistake you make. And we're all going to make mistakes. We're all human. Nothing questioning about that. But how to, we just give them a helping hand. It might, it might be a cricket bat. It might be a pair of footy boots, or it might just be half hour of your time just to have a chat.
But is that something that you were conscious of when you came into professional sport, like leaning on those guys who are 25s, 30s, 35s, who have already probably made a lot of the mistakes that you've already made?
Yeah, definitely. And I think the fact that I do love a beer helps too, because after training, we talk about that era. Yeah, we have guys like Andrew Simons and the late great Shane Warne, like the pair of them, Darren Lehman, another one, and a real good mate of mine, Brendan McCullum. After training, you work hard and then you go relax and have a beer, and you're learning from those guys when you're sitting at the pub or the restaurant, just relaxing. You're learning how to be a better cricketer, a better person, a better father, a better teammate, all these things, and you're not even trying. You're just soaking it all up. Because I spent so much time with those guys, I found it a lot easier rather than someone just asking. That's probably more,
It's like, can we catch up for a coffee? I just want to pick your brain.
Yeah, because a lot of guys are so scared to do that. I suppose the younger generation now, probably not so much scared because they're out there. Yeah, they've got no fear of failure. But yeah, it come natural to me, and I find you don't always have to talk as well. Listening is a really strong point of mine. It's
that cliche of like the five crew that you hang around, you're most likely to be. Yeah, like I remember when I first came into Bronx, I think I was my first pro contract at maybe 17, 18, and so went into the Broncos side, and at that time they were all like playing Origins, like Josh Maguire, Semi Thaiday, Corey Parker, Matt Gillette, and I remember coming in like 17 years old, like just so nervous to talk, because these are guys, bro, these are the guys that I looked up to when I was 10 years old. I got a photo with Corey Parker when I was like, I think 10. I had a little ratty. I was gross. I was the worst kid ever. But then there was a really cool photo of like me and him when I think I was like 18, and he was obviously captaining the side. And I was like, man, that's so cool to look back. But the learnings, like I remember Cos would say he bought his first house at 18, made his debut at 18, and I was like, wow, well, if I could buy my first house when I'm a teenager, or like make my debut, then maybe I'll have half the career that he has. But there was all these like little learnings that I got along the way, and it was so important.
Yeah, I think the biggest learning that I feel, don't get bitter the older you get. You would have played with some teammates that do get the shits with the young fellas coming through that might push for your position here or there. So I've always said to myself, don't get jealous of this young guy coming through, because the game of cricket or any game or any industry is never going to go backwards. And this is why I love Brendan McCullum and Darren Lehman so much. It's because they're so happy to help people, come through. It might be breaking their records, whatever it may be, hitting the ball further. I've always said to myself, don't be that bitter old bloke they're saying back in my day. Which that there are people out there like that. And understand you've got to be selfish to get to where you get to, but there's a point, which is now in my career, that giving back is nearly the most important thing.
And imagine like that's probably such a huge thing as well, like because you've got this young crew coming here who are super talented, and you can apply that to any sport. But I imagine it still probably makes you a better cricketer as well, because you've got to stay on top of your game.
Oh, you
man.
have to. And also, if I'm going to preach something, I've got to do it myself.
Yes.
I don't hit the second ball for 6. Oh, shit, I hit it straight up in the air.
Yeah.
Work on yourself. But no, it's cool. And it's a space that I've really enjoyed. Obviously, when you go on the nets and you've been doing it for 15 years, it doesn't get overly exciting or trigger anymore. What it does is actually helping the guy at the other end.
Yeah.
Because that muscle memory is built in, to hit a straight drive. But what about helping the guy at the other end? Yeah. Especially as cricketers, the last 15 years, I found it challenging to help other people because all you're relying on is yourself. And even from a family point of view, I've struggled to put my family first. And so for me, looking back, that's the most challenging thing. And that's a daily challenge for me. And all I can do is just make sure my awareness is on top of that, better and better every day.
So zooming in on that, what does it look like? Because obviously you've got to be selfish when you're a professional athlete. How did you find the balance, or was there a moment where you're like, I need to be better at putting my family first? Or like you talked about that awareness part. Like how did you go navigating that?
Well, I'm still navigating it. And, it's an everyday challenge. I find when you're at cricket training, yes, you are the number one. But in saying that, you're still playing a team game. So you've just got to, use your cricket IQ in that sense. And then no different to when you walk onto the field, you switch on. When you walk off, you switch off.
Yeah.
That's probably a crucial thing. Because I've no doubt you would have done the same. You're laying in bed, you're visualising the game the night before, and shit, it kills you.
Yeah.
And your partner or your little one might be talking to her, and you've just ignored it. So that's a big thing that I'm trying to get better at. As I said, it's an everyday thing because I don't believe you could ever be perfect at it. But just knowing when to switch on and switch off, and if you peel back a few more layers, it's like when I've faced a ball, and then the bowler's walking back, I'm switching off. That you can't be on for the whole amount of time when you're on the field. Because this was back when I played Sheffield Shield cricket. If you want to bat for 6 hours, there's no way you can concentrate for the whole 6 hours. Yeah. You play the ball and then you switch off for a couple of seconds, and then when he's at the top of the mark, you switch back on. Things like that. So on a bigger scale, when I'm walking off the field or walking into my door at home, that's what I've got to get better at.
Was there a moment with your family specifically that you were like, oh, I'm not being the best I can be?
Absolutely. And probably because you think your family's always going to be there, you just take it for granted. So you think, okay, I can actually be a bit reckless here. And this is, the sun will come up tomorrow and we'll work it out. But, or your parents, they'll always be there for you. And then you realize, fuck, I'm actually being an absolute knob. You got to reel it in. So when you invest in yourself, I think there's no price on that. So what I found throughout COVID, actually, because I did, I think, 4 months quarantine in the 2.5 years, obviously 2 weeks at a time, it was quite challenging. And I was just getting so, I had nowhere to go, right? I'm in the four walls.
What was challenging about it?
Obviously, can't go outside your room.
Isolation piece.
Yeah, the isolation side of things. You're on your phone for 20 hours a day out of 24, getting into some bad habits. But then I decided to, bring in a sports performance coach or a sports psych. And that's probably the best thing I've ever done.
Really?
Because when you invest in yourself, there's no price on it. And yes, it might be quite expensive. And some people might not have the ability to do that. But I can tell you the lessons that I've learned from it, and this is what I'm trying to pass down now to the younger kids, and things like journaling. Yeah. If you're having a shit day, not even a shit day, in the morning, ask yourself 3 questions. How do I feel? Why do I feel that way? What can I do to change? And then give yourself a mark. So it might be a 5 out of 10. At lunchtime, do the same thing. How do I feel? Why do I feel that way? What can I do to change? I might have got to a 6, but at least I'm on the right direction. So that's just little things just to keep me the next 4 or 5 hours. And that's just such a small thing that helped me change my outlook rather than drag on. And I downloaded information as well rather than build the shit up.
Yeah. That's it's almost like a free way of talking as well, right? It's just so is that something you've learned through your sport psych? The journaling.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's the first thing that he spoke about to me. Just because as athletes we bottle a lot of shit up, right?
Yeah.
And it frustrates you, and then a little knock-on effect might be so harmless to you, but because you've got built up energy, you're taking it out on your loved ones. And I'm guilty of that all the time. And now I'm at a point now where I don't have to journal. I can just, flush it, download it, get rid of it. And then I ask myself, everyone's got mentors. So Brendan McCullum is mine, and Cameron Smith, the rugby league player. Not
Really
the golfer.
great. Yeah,
well, I love the golf.
One of the greats. One of the great men.
But I asked myself, what would Cam do or what would Baz do? Knowing, and if you've watched them play, they never get emotional out on the field. It's always calculated when they talk to the umpires or the ref or with their players. And seeing them and how they go about their work, when I use those words, it just makes me nice and calm.
It's so cool that you're conscious of that and you're willing to do that at the later end of your career.
Yeah.
Like imagine if these young kids at like 18, 19, 20 are starting to implement this stuff now.
That's right.
Imagine you see like the the process. Like I love psychology, mental health. That's how this whole thing started. And I was like, well, if I had someone who had like a foundational knowledge of psychology, but then also had the like background of professional sport. If I had someone that I could talk to like that, I would have made so many less mistakes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because we're always making mistakes. But then if you've got someone like that has the sports psych background, talking to them, I love that journaling piece.
Yeah.
I've just started doing it as well. But it's such a great way of like same thing, like instead of like building it up and it like sitting there on your chest or you're constantly ruminating about it, when you can like put it down, it's kind of like an emotional dump.
It is, yeah.
It's great.
Yeah, just for yourself. And there's other ways you can do it. If you want to just do it before you go to sleep, just write down what you're going to do the next morning. Because when you wake up and you're on your phone, before you know it, you're scrolling on social media and an hour's gone. You're like, fuck, where's that? Like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Whereas if I already know what I'm doing the next morning, I'm up, I made my bed, and I'm away.
Really?
That's my first task done. Bang.
What was another learning that you got out of that COVID time? Because you said it was a pretty tricky time. Like, did you get to be with your family through those months that you were traveling?
No, not at all. So it was challenging. I found being in isolation. Always ask yourself, it's not what I can't do, it's what you can do. So, all right, I'm going to use there's 24 hours in a day. I'm going to use at least one to work on my physical strength, whether that's walking around the boundary of the room, whether a circuit or a Zoom call when you're doing, all that crazy shit we were doing throughout COVID.
Yeah, man.
I look back now, I think, Jesus.
There's only so many push-ups you can do in one room,
that's
man.
Right. But you ask yourself the question, it's not what you can't do, it's what you can do. And just try and stay on top of it all, knowing that having a drink in isolation is not going to be ideal for you because you're just going to get in a bad headspace and nowhere to go.
Yeah.
Just trying to throw all the white noise away and just be productive for, as I said, for a couple of hours a day, and then whatever. At least you've
but
done something.
that's easier said than done, though, right?
100%.
Like I've spoken to a lot of, especially the Olympic athletes that are similar to yourself, that would travel away, go overseas, and they'd be like in confined quarantine for 2 weeks, right? And they just said like it's so hard. Like I mean, you've got your room, they might give you like a little exercise bike or some like bands, but you're locked in there. You're locked in there with your own thoughts, and maybe you've got a roommate, maybe you don't. But it's like
You're not sure what food's coming.
You're probably getting shit food as well, to be honest. Like, but it would be easier said than done to be like, oh, I'm going to be proactive every single day. Because what do you say? 4 months of the year, you were in isolation.
Yeah. So it's quite challenging, but I feel like I've taken a lot of learnings out from it. Obviously, I hope COVID never returns in that capacity. But yeah, it was challenging, but I think it was a real big turning point for myself. And as I said, those learnings I can pass on to the youngsters or any athlete that goes through it.
Yeah. What did it look like specifically when you were traveling around? Like, did you have, because it was a space over 2 years, were you still going overseas and playing?
Yeah. So again, I don't want to play the victim card because I was still able to work and play.
Yeah.
What comes with that is 2 weeks quarantine either side. So to add up 4 months of 2 weeks either side, it did get a bit frustrating, but I still got to play the game I love.
Yeah.
Still got to play the game I love in Dubai, in the Caribbean. In England. So what did it look like? Pretty lonely. Yeah. Sometimes you're better just keeping your eyes closed. Playing in front of no crowds was weird, because normally when you go and you're at the IPL in India, there's crowds that are going nuts, and that's what gets you up. So you had to find a way to get yourself up because otherwise it just felt like a training run. And you're playing the highest level of cricket. So how does that, I suppose the difference in pressure. We talk about pressure, right? People play their best when they're at training sometimes, but when there's a crowd of 30,000, 40,000, they might shit themselves.
Yeah.
So this sort of had the opposite effect. How do I get myself up without the crowd?
Yeah.
So it was a different challenge, but it was awesome. Yeah.
Mate, zooming in on that pressure, I remember one of the first podcasts we did was with Mac Horton. He was an Olympic gold medalist in the 400. Again, one of the great men, and he talks about pressure as pressure being a privilege, and how you might have all this external pressure from media, family, friends, probably a lot on yourself as well, like that internal pressure as well. And he's like, it's sort of like the analogy of you whip open a newspaper. You can read it, but then you can also just put under your arm and just get on with it.
Yeah.
Is that something that you think about? Like, how do you deal with pressure, especially because you played some big games as well? How do you deal with it?
Well, especially during COVID, because sport was the only thing on, right?
Yeah.
So all the eyeballs were watching it.
Yeah.
I was like, shit, I know there's no one in the crowd, but there's a lot of eyeballs watching on TV. How did I deal with it? I felt I was deep enough into my career to, I used to get nervous. Fielding on the boundary, going out there, you're on zero, you want to get off the mark, get a run. But I suppose the point in time when, again, Phil Hughes passed away, what's pressure? Once you go through something like that, it doesn't matter what happens. If I get a duck, fuck, the sun's going to come up tomorrow. Yeah. And the show goes on. So that's what I realized. It doesn't matter. Yeah, and you're going to go through good, bouts of form. You're going to get 100, 150, or you're going to go duck 5, 7. A lot of people like to think, oh, you're out of form. And as I was saying to you the other day, I don't like to think I'm out of form. I'm just one game closer to the man of the match. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So, and when you play that fear-free cricket, you play your best. Yeah. I'm not saying you don't give a shit about your performances, but you go out there ready to turn it on. And believe it or not, I'm not the most consistent in the world, but I'm going to have these, eye-catching moments that's going to change the game.
But it's kind of like, do you feel like you're in a bit of a flow state?
Absolutely. It's like autopilot.
Yeah.
Bang. And then you walk off, you go, what the fuck just happened?
What do you do? And it goes so quickly.
Yeah.
And that flow state, I forgot who someone.
But in saying that, so quickly, but in slow motion.
Yeah.
Like when you're walking off, but when you're actually in that moment, in that point in time, I feel like the bowler's just coming in, it's in slow mo, so I can pick and choose where you're going. But when you're off, you're like, how did that just happen? And it's a really cool space to be in.
I wonder if I don't say I wonder, but I imagine that's because of like you've had all these reps over the last couple decades, right? Of like just doing everything consistently. It's almost like stacking days, right? Like there's that analogy of layers of paint that build a mountain, and every action is a layer of paint. And if you do that consistently over 5, 10, 20, 30 plus years, that's where you're going to see some incredible results. You talked about Cam Smith. He was at the top of his game for 20 plus years.
He could still be going.
And he could still be going. He's one of the great men. And then he just did things that were so flawless. And you talked about how it almost slowed down. I imagine that's because you've done all the work prior, and that's how you, I imagine, build confidence as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And going back to Cam, it looked like he was doing it effortlessly, but he was 2 or 3 plays ahead of everyone else.
Yeah.
And I suppose when you get in that space as such, it's cool to be in, and you never take it for granted. So in cricket, you never flirt with form and just go there and play a reckless shot or whatever, because like any game, it can bite you in the ass quicker than and undo all that hard work that you've done. Yeah. But yeah, it's a cool space.
That flow, and those people who have been in that stage, and I imagine. I don't think it's just athletes. I imagine it's probably a lot of like business owners when they're in like certain meetings or even if you're just, I don't know, just running. When you go for like a long run.
And you're just gliding.
And you're gliding and you're like, holy shit, I've been running for like 45 minutes, like an hour. I was like, I'm only used to doing 5Ks.
Yeah. But then other days you feel like your legs won't just get in front of your hips.
Yeah.
It's a nightmare.
Someone's talking about it's a thing of just like starting. Like you've just got to start, like especially if you've got this huge project and you don't know, you might have like 3 or 4 ways just to start it. Like if you're going to run, just put the joggers on.
Yeah.
Just put the joggers on and start, and then you'll figure it out.
Start by walking.
Yeah, 100%. Well, it's like this for the podcast, right? Like I had an idea of a way I think, like I was telling you before, like I think athletes are the most influential people in Australia, like given our sporting background of Australian athletes. And I feel like if they can be seen talk about their own struggles and vulnerabilities, then it makes it okay for everyone else too, right? And that's why I'm so grateful for you to come on and be so open about experiences that you've gone through and pass these learnings on to the younger generation coming through, or even just your everyday punter.
Yeah.
But when I was starting, I was like, well, how do you start this? Like, fortunate to have amazing circle of friends who are playing incredible sport at the moment. But it was like, where do you start? You just got to start. So let's just record a couple and just go from there.
Yeah, but not go to the moon the first episode, because I find if it gets too hard, people just throw the towel in.
Yeah.
And I find, I'm getting back into I'll have my first session tomorrow, right? In cricket, I know I'm not going to be a world beater and hit every ball out of the middle, but that's okay. So your expectation actually can't be through the roof. It's got to be real. It's no different to when I'm coaching kids as well. Yeah. A lot of parents will push their kids to want to be playing for Australia at 17. And I actually tell them, well, I got bad news that your kid's not playing at 17. There's been one or two that have in the world.
Yeah.
Right. So let's be realistic. Otherwise, he's just going to be disappointed when that outcome doesn't happen.
When you were younger, did you have a lot of expectation to play professional cricket early?
I was shit scared to go to uni, so that's why I trained real hard.
You've got another driver.
Yeah, that was a big driving. But it was my will to win.
Yep.
You got mates over. I had all the league boys in the backyard because my old man, I was very lucky enough, he built a cricket net in the side of the house. So, all the footy boys would come over and I'd always bowl it at their legs and they'd chase me around the house, whatever. And then I'd bat for a couple of hours and they'd be so sore. But just that will to win, that drive, that competitiveness, just that someone to compete against, that one-on-one battle, I just absolutely loved. Yeah. And as I was saying earlier, my love for cricket probably isn't as where it was, but my will to compete is higher than ever. And I think as an athlete, you'll never lose that drive.
I think that's why you'll be so successful life after sport. Yeah, I look at a lot of crew who come out of professional sport. They still have that drive, man.
Yeah.
They still, I don't know, like they might miss the contact or they might miss that competitive side, but they'll take those learnings of like hard work, resilience, overcoming injuries into everyday life. And that's why a lot of crew are so successful. Talking about a few of your businesses, mate, we were talking about Playbook before. And to be honest, man, I've no Playbook. Like I deal a lot with like NRLW players and netball players and a lot of even crew who are in the development contracts who play and train at such a high level, but they need flexible employment to, I guess, to make an income, just to get by. And so I knew of Playbook, but I didn't know that you're one of the co-founders of it. I've known it for years.
Yeah.
How did that originate? How did the idea start?
Well, I was actually just had my second shoulder reconstruction, and I was just sitting at the pub with my first grade captain, Kieran Murphy, who's the co-founder. And I was thinking, what does life look like after cricket? And first and foremost, how did I get to where I got to? And that was private mentor and coaching. And I was very lucky.
Mentoring you?
Mentoring me, yeah. But I was very lucky to play in representative sides growing up. So I was lucky to be surrounded by that elite level sportsmen. Yeah. And I thought, again, like I said, the game of cricket doesn't know me anything. How can I give back or help a young junior succeed to get to where I got to? Yeah. And it's so simple. Like there's private coaching. We're just basically professionalizing that, and it's something that I'm probably most proud of. Obviously, playing for Australia is great, and they're all accolades that a lot of like the world sees, but not a lot of people see what's going on to help the other kids. We send coaches to rural areas. It's a very simple platform where the coach names their own price, time, location, and we're not just an elitist platform. If you play for Australia, you might charge a little bit more than a first grade player, and that's totally okay, because people it might be a birthday present or it might be more affordable that they want weekly. So there's options there. We've just ticked over 1,000 coaches Australia-wide.
Congratulations, man. That's huge.
Netball's our biggest sport. The girls love coaching. The girls love giving back. So boys, you better start aiming up.
Yeah.
No, but it's so simple. It's such a simple product. And, on that mentoring side of things, my most rewarding session was this kid was non-verbal. I won't use his name, but he would ask his brother the question if they were sitting next to each other on a Zoom call. So he'd ask his brother a question, and you know, the mum had spent thousands of dollars on speech, you know, psychologists and whatnot. And then after 27 minutes, I got him to speak to me, and the mum's in the background crying. And I'm not saying I'm Superman or anything, but that's the power that athletes can have throughout you know, the community. And now he's going to Big Bash games. He's got signs. I'm like, this is so cool. This is so bloody cool.
But that's life-changing stuff, yeah.
It is. And as I said, we're not all about playing for Australia. You might want to move up the batting order from the wing to fly off, or just the confidence to play a team sport. And so now he's on to bigger and better things just through, you know, someone that he could connect with. And as you said, it's flexible. You're not locked in to coach here and there or mentor. Some coaches might work for you, some might not, and that's okay. The world isn't perfect. If the world was perfect, it'd stop spinning. So, mate, that's the most proudest session I've ever done.
Mate, but it's so cool that you're not just doing cricket, you're doing all other sports. Like you talked about AFL, you've got rugby league. I went and had a look on the platform last night, and man, it's incredible the amount of coaches that you guys have on there, from like top level Australian players to like local heroes to local players. Like it is so cool to see. And it's also like, mate, the compounding effect, like the flow on effect that you're going to see is, mate, it's incredible.
Yeah, that's right. Excuse me. And we talk like Trevor Gilmeister has done a heap of sessions, and the axe, like he's known for he's the tackling machine. So we get him to go into schools and make sure tackling is a safety thing, right? It's the biggest, most important thing in rugby and rugby league in schools, that safety aspect. And he loves it, the axe. You know,
he's still got it, man. I did a session with him. He came on Friday to that past players session. Past NRL, like past footy players. We just came and did a little boxing session at Matt Gillette's gym. And mate, he's still got it. He's still ripping up cuts.
It's awesome.
It's tough as, man.
It's awesome. So yeah, there's heaps of sessions out there, whether it be online or face-to-face, one-on-one, small group sessions. But yeah, changing that narrative, or even if you're a fly-in, fly-out worker, if you're the dad and you can't, you know, every second week be with your boy to throw cricket balls at him or whatever, Playbook's giving kids an opportunity, and it's awesome. And mate, we're only just we've been live for 5 years, but we're starting to get some really good momentum, and it's awesome. But we're only just beginning.
I was going to say, what's the long-term plan?
Oh, I don't know yet. We just kick a goal and keep moving forward. I'm not one to set, you know, real long-term goals, because you never know where that narrative is going to change, or the people you run into, or but all I know is, as I said, keep being 1% better every day and see where that takes you.
We were having that conversation before jumping on. It's like you never know what's going to happen. Like it's just a matter of like being in a room with someone, especially with crew. Like you'll probably talk about Playbook, or even like when you had a beer with one of your co-founders. It's like that's led to so much good that has happened. It's like those sliding door moments. I think about that all the time. It's like one little event can just change the whole trajectory of your life.
That's right. And it's just that mindset as well. I might be pissed off with someone. Like, for example, don't get me wrong, I hated when I left the Brisbane Heat or got sacked from the Brisbane Heat, whatever way you want to put it, and it hurt. But there was no advantage of me burning that bridge, because I love Brisbane. I want to come back to Brisbane at some point, whether it's a playing capacity, coaching capacity, staff, whatever it may be. So that's my mindset that I've taken on. Just no matter how much it pisses you off, just take the positive option.
But it'd be easy to kick stones. It'd be so easy to kick stones.
Oh, and I was so grumpy. I was the worst bloke to be around when it happened. But I'm thinking, you know, and you wanted Brisbane to come last the next year, and put it this way, ever since I've left, they've been winning. So I probably should have left earlier. But I originally I wanted them to fail, but I thought, what kind of bloke wants their mates to fail? Because they are my best mates. So once I had a hard look at myself and just changed that mindset, that narrative, you know, it's been awesome ever since.
Is that a conversation that you had with someone? What was the switch?
Well, I was working with my sports performance coach. It's just little things, just reading the room. Where do you want to get to? Are you looking short term, long term? What narrative do you want to create, or what legacy do you want to leave as well? Yeah,
mate, I'm interested on the environment of professional sport, the mental health space in cricket, because I know I can only speak on behalf of like rugby league players. I remember when I first came into NRL, like I lost a few mates to suicide, and that's what I probably started this whole thing. But it was a very like macho, brave thing. Like but don't talk about what's going on. Just get on with it. Like you'll be right. Like she'll be right. Culture, and I can see it shifting. I can see like what Nico's been doing. Nico Hines in the NRL talking about having a mental fitness round, And it's all, and even having like Kalen Ponga, like Dally M, one of the best players in the NRL, and a lot of these guys, like they're so open about talking what's going on. And what they've found and what I've started to learn is that vulnerability is not something to be shunned upon. It's actually something that helps you to be a better player and a better person. What's the cricket space like? Oh, and have you seen it changed at all over the years?
Oh, definitely. You know, we talk about Captain Grumpy Alan Border back in the day.
Yeah.
You know, that was a very different demographic, I believe, to what it is now. And the world is evolving. There's no doubt about that. Whether you like it or not, that's what's in front of us. But yeah, we're talking about COVID and the travel side of things. There's so much more travel in cricket now, I believe, that it does get tough. But people just think you're on the road, you're getting paid X amount, you've got the life. But I'll give you like the hot tip: it's not all bells and whistles. But again, I'm not going to sit here and play the victim card. So you've got to take the good with the bad. You know what you're signing up for. As for people reaching out, there's a lot more opportunity there to reach out, whereas you probably didn't know back then. You know, there's a lot more staff designated for that. You know, the welfare agent in the club, and they do a great job. They probably don't get enough recognition because they're probably more of a sports psych than the actual team psych, because I found it hard to report to the team psychologist to show my weakness to him, because who's he getting paid by? The coach. And if he's showing weakness there, then so I'd rather, as I said, go out and invest in myself through independently, or the welfare guy that has no agenda as well. But yeah, it's I mean, we've seen it grow and grow. There's opportunity there, but from my personal dealings, I've been really, really happy with how it's going. And having Playbook, I've seen all sports now, and the players opening up, and it is being accepted. You know, it's actually, we saw Reece Walsh the other night talk about Paddy Carrigan and looking after his daughter. That's cool. That's cool shit, right? And he got emotional talking about it on a 5-minute interview on Channel 9. You know, so, and he's probably the highest ranked sportsman in Australia right now. Well, most popular with females, especially.
He's doing tough, man.
Yeah.
He's doing it tough.
So it's accepted. We've seen, you know, the Raging Bull, Gordy Tallis, talk about, you know, on the Matty Johns show before and get emotional. And he's one of the toughest that's ever played the game. So it's acceptable. It's out there. It's not going to change. So if you hate it, stiff shit. That's the way we're going.
Yeah. Do you see it changing or shifting globally? Like, because I'm mostly predominantly in Australia, right? But you traveled around, you know, all around the world. Is it prominent in other parts of the world, or do you think it's shifting in other parts of the world?
I think so. I think and
it might not be. Like, let me put words in that. I'm just curious.
Yeah, I find the West Indian culture might be a little bit slower than the Australian culture. But it's probably unfair of me to say that as well, because I haven't spent, you know, I don't live and breathe the Caribbean culture. But I know that the American sport is definitely, you know, flying the flag, because we've seen, I can't remember the coach from the Steph Curry's mob. You know, all he wanted to talk about was a political view about shootings, you know, so the care that he's got for the environment, the people around, you know, the world is definitely shifting. Not just focusing on, as you said, we're role models in everything. Even though politics and sport shouldn't collide, believe it or not, they do. But I think now the sportsmen are having a say and making a huge impact.
Mate, you've obviously lived a pretty big life for the last couple decades. How do you know when to finish? Like, it's obviously, it's a big question, and you obviously still got so much drive, and you always have that competitive nature. How do you know when it's time to call it? Is it talking to other people who've been through it, and it might be a couple of years away? Is it talking to mates, people who've been through it? Is it a personal thing? Like, how do you know when that time is?
I reckon it's gone through my head probably 15,000 times. When
Really, it's a roller coaster, man.
Yeah, and it's not a performance thing. It's just I can't be bothered. Type, or you just go through. I challenge everyone who asked, "Oh, you're so lucky you get to play cricket." It is a job. It's not a chore. It's a job, but it's a job that I've chosen, and I absolutely love it. But do I love it every day? No. Yeah. But you're allowed to have shit days. Yeah. You're allowed to not feel guilty and have those shit days. For example, it was after I went to Vegas for the NRL round one.
Magic Round?
No.
Oh, not Magic Round. So this year?
This year.
Gotcha.
In Vegas, round one. Broncos being my team, playing there. And, I was like, you know what? This is a great trip just to put a full stop on my sporting career. I was hating the game of cricket at the time, but then I saw the boys, run out to the, for the game. I thought, this is way too cool. Like I can still do that, on the cricket field. So I ended up forgetting to retire, and away we go.
Imagine if you announced it a bit previously, a bit premature. And you're like, actually, right. I'm still coming back.
No, it's just you go through waves. Don't make decisions on height and emotions. Yeah. And to be honest, I love the game more than ever right now. So for a time frame, got no idea. On the other side of things, you've still got a reputation, expectation to uphold. I still believe I'm still hitting the ball as good as anyone. Yeah. So play on,
mate. That's the whole roller coaster, hey. Because I've been there as well. Like you think, I love this sport, especially when you come off a win. But and when you have a couple losses and like the body's feeling sore, you can't get out. I remember there was one time I was like, my mattress was on the floor because I was cheap and I was like 18-year-old. Like I remember maybe 20. I don't know. I was getting into it. I remember getting off the floor and I just couldn't get out of bed. Like I think I had a hip pointer, my ankle was stuffed. I had an AC that I was getting injected every week, and I was like, is this going to be my life for the next 10 years? But then obviously you overcome it and you overcome these like, struggles and challenges. And you're like, I'm so glad I did.
100%.
Because those learnings, like far out, man, like I learned so much of that I took into everyday life.
Yeah. Yeah. Just because it's been about 2 weeks, don't make a decision on that. So, I've been told try and get to 3 months. If you've still got the same decision in 3 months, then maybe that's time.
Yeah, mate. What does life after footy look like? Obviously, like super entrepreneurial, and you're curious about so many things. What does it look like?
So obviously Playbook's a big play there. But from a cricket point of view, I'd love to get in a coaching role. I don't mind commentating as well. Just
talk underwater, mate.
Yeah, just growing the game. Yeah. I mean, I love sitting at a pub having a beer, and it doesn't have to be my mates. Just sitting with, it could be a local.
Can you have a beer while you're commentating? I don't know.
Maybe we can change that.
We'll have a conversation about that later, man.
Why not? I'm a bit disappointed this water.
Sorry, mate. It's 8 o'clock in the morning. I'm kidding. It's later.
But it's diving down that coaching ranks. I'd love to. My career, I was a T20 player. Sorry, I chose T20 cricket, a lot earlier than the guys at the back end of their career do. And I got grilled for it. Cricket's a traditional sport, right? And the baggy green's a pinnacle. I never got to play for the Australian Test team. I got to play one-day cricket and T20 cricket, and then I chose the path of T20. So instead of going, the vertical option, I went horizontal. And
why'd you do that?
I can give you the cop-out answer and say my shoulders and hate fielding and whatnot, but I just really enjoyed the hit, bang aspect of T20 cricket, the crowds, 3 hours, go, a couple of days off, go again. Just that aspect of it, I just really love. Hitting the ball out of the park, being aggressive when you're batting. Don't get me wrong, I loved my time when I was playing long format cricket, but T20 cricket just gave me a different buzz, gave me opportunities to travel around the world. Again, it's not the bee's knees doing it, but it's been awesome. And one thing that I did cop a bit of flack about it because you disrespect the baggy green or whatever, and whatnot. But their kids were like, "Oh, can I have your autograph?" Yeah. So it's give or take. But one thing that I always am proud of is that I haven't turned my back on that decision. Halfway through, I've always been true to my word, because if you go back and forth between long format, short format, people will see right through you just because one thing didn't work out and you go back to the old thing. And it's been a different ride, but it's one that I've absolutely loved.
Because to be honest, man, I don't know that much about like the intricacies of cricket. But like obviously like long form and T20, but from the outside looking in, I don't know. I don't see it as super disrespectful. Like I just see it as like, I look at it, I can only apply it to the NRL world, where it's just like, oh, you can play in the NRL, but then you can also go and play in the Super League. Like it's just, they're just different. They're just different games. So when you talk about how people say it's disrespectful or going back and forth, they can see right through it. I was like, I don't know, maybe that's just me being a bit uneducated on it, but I don't see it.
But it's, I suppose, T20, I believe, has put, Test cricket back on the map. It's got new eyeballs watching. And as I said, I'm all about growing the game. And I do believe through T20 cricket that I have had a somewhat impact in kids playing the game.
Brother, mate, I've loved this conversation, bro. It's been so, and we're flying through it. 50 minutes,
right.
mate. It just, these things go so quickly, man.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, honestly, you blink and it's done, mate. Obviously, like there's so much parts to your story, and I know that professional sports are a roller coaster. What do you think's the biggest thing or the most important thing that we haven't spoken about today?
Probably the fact you're allowed to fail and have a crack at everything. I suppose we did touch on it early, that all the sports that I played, because I wanted to have a crack at everything. And for me, being a new father, that I want to give the same opportunities to especially Lily or any kid for that matter, the same opportunity that I got. And I think that's the most important thing. And I probably have to give my parents the biggest thanks for that, because they allowed me to do that. What else? We've covered quite a bit, to be honest.
Mate, just zooming in on Lily, you've met so many incredible people along the way.
Mm-hmm.
If there was, say, 2 people that you would love for Lily to have, like, to be their mentors in your circles, who do you think they would be?
Oh,
And what traits, like, what is it about them that you think would be great for Lily to learn
well,
from?
excluding mum and dad.
Yes.
Sportsmen. Look, it's hard to go past my mentors, but that's me thinking about me again.
Yeah.
Someone like probably from like a Laura Geitz, I reckon. Just change the aspect of netball.
Yeah.
Change the dynamic there.
What's it about her?
Well, obviously she was just so good. She was a great netballer. What she does for the game now, she's still heavily involved. And a great person as well. She doesn't always, like, they don't live in the city. They're out a little bit further, so that you don't have to be under the spotlight every day. You can choose when you want to be. And I suppose, she's so relaxed. It's just that calm attitude is something that I look at and go, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So, and another one, I guess, there's a golfer, Nelly Corder, in the US. She just won her 6th tournament in a row. But the other day, she shot her worst round, and she got on the media to the presser and said, "Yeah, well, shit happens." Like,
That's so cool.
it's just like she's a Tiger Woods of women's golf, and she had by her standards a poor round, but she goes, "Yeah, shit," and then the show goes on.
What's next?
So just keep looking forward, not backwards, and life's actually pretty simple, I reckon.
Yeah.
We just like to complicate the shit out of it.
Yeah, mate.
But obviously everyone's got their own issues, and rule number 1 is never have a crack at someone because you don't know what they're going through.
Yeah.
And we used to just jump at that, and there's worse shit happening out there in life.
Man, people make it so complicated.
That's
like
right.
Exactly what you just said. And the more I have these conversations with, like, not only like incredible athletes, but some of like the most incredible people.
Yeah.
And we talk about surrounding yourself with good people, and you're generally going to be a better person as well. But it's the little things, man. It's honestly like it's having that connection between mates, being able to talk about what's going on. Eat little things like eating good food.
I was just about to say that balance of
man.
work, life. Don't get me wrong. As I said, I love having a beer, but I still think my training is higher than most.
Yeah.
And that's that balance we talk about, eating well and just triggering that domino.
Yeah. Physical activity, man. But I love what you said about the balance, because don't get me wrong, love having a beer.
Yeah.
Like, love being out with my mates.
Yeah.
But you got to have that balance.
You
bro.
have to. Yeah.
Liddy, mate, thank you so much for this conversation, brother. I'm like I said, I'm a huge fan. I've loved watching your career over the years, and I love the circles that we knock around with, mate. So, mate, so many cool little golden nuggets in that conversation that I'm super excited to share. So, mate, thanks so much for your time, brother.
Cool,